Law of cosines. So we covered this in class today. You guys saw the first case, the side, side, side. Tomorrow you're going to see the side angle side, but I'm going to cover everything in this video. So a brief overview of the law of cosines. We use the law of cosines to help us solve non-right triangles. Last week we had gone over the law of sines. That was another method for solving non-right triangles. And you determine which of the two you're going to use based off of what you're given or the type of triangle you have. So law of cosines is set up to be used if you know all three sides, so side, 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 or you know two sides with their included angle. Remember, to use the law of sines, you must have a side angle pair. So if you don't have that side angle pair, this now allows us to solve a non-right triangle without having to create two right triangles and then going through the right triangle trigonometry process pretty extensively. There are three formulas that we can use. Don't forget, the lowercase letters are your side lengths and your capital letters are your angle measures. The angle measures at the end guide us into which formula to use for which angle we're looking for. And the front of our equations, the side lengths, tell us which equation we're going to use if we're looking for a side. So we're going to start with example 1. Make sure you have your calculator out. Write these down, pause as I go, slow it down, stop it. If you want to practice this real quick, go ahead and practice this. And then you guys can check your work with mine. Look for any mistakes. I am going to show you all of my work. As you saw in class, this does take time. So I don't want to rush through this, but I'm not going to go slow either, knowing that you can stop and pause the video and rewind. So angle A we don't know, angle B we don't know, angle C we don't know. So we're going to have to find all three angles. I do know little a is 8, I know little b is 5, and I know side C is 10. So I'm going to start by finding angle A. So I'm going to find angle A first. So I'm going to use a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cosine of A. And I picked this because I decided to find angle A first. So I'm going to plug in and I'm going to take my time. So 8 squared is A. B was 5, so 5 squared plus 10 squared minus 2 times 5 times 10 cosine of A. So I'm going to simplify all of my numbers. So I have 64, 25, 100, and let's see, 2 times 5 is 10, times 10 is 100. I'm going to combine my 125 and my 100. 64 equals 125 minus 100 cosine of A. Now don't forget, you cannot combine 125 and 100. 100 is being multiplied to cosine. So they're not like terms. We cannot put them together. So I need to subtract 125. So I'm going to just use my calculator. I don't want to make any errors here. So 64 minus 125 gives me negative 61. So negative 61 equals negative 100 cosine of A. Now I can divide by the negative 100. Two negatives are going to make this a positive 61 over 100. Now I need to get A, which is my angle. Well, it's with cosine, so I want to undo cosine. So to undo cosine, I have to take the inverse of both sides. So my inverse cosine and my cosine will cancel, and I am left with cosine inverse of 61 over 100 will give me angle A. So I've checked to make sure that my calculator is in degree mode. Second cosine, I'm using parentheses, 61 divided by 100. and I have 52.4. 52.41 degrees. So I'm going to come up here and put that. 52.41 degrees. Now I'm going to find angle B. So I'm going to come over here. So I only have to go through this process one more time. Since I'm finding angle B, I'm going to use B squared equals A squared plus C squared minus 2AC cosine of angle B. And again, I'm finding angle B. So I'm going to plug everything else in. So I have 5 squared, A squared. You guys can go ahead and use some mental math. Remember, I'm showing everything right now. But you guys do the squares. Multiply the 2 times A times C. Do that ahead of time. You don't need to write everything unless you want to. If you prefer to show everything, show everything. So 25, 64, 100. 16 times 10 is 160. Cosine of B. I'm going to add 64 and 100. Then I'm going to subtract the 164. So 25 minus 164 gives me negative 139. Negative 160. Now I'm going to divide by negative 160. This just takes practice, you guys. The more comfortable you are working through equations, the better off all of your math classes from here on out are going to be. So now I'm going to take the inverse of both sides so I can cancel the cosine. Cancels. Cosine inverse. 139 over 160 equals B. So in my calculator, I've already checked the mode. 139 divided by 160, and I get 29.69. Be careful, you guys, please. With the double negatives, if you're not going to cancel the negatives, that's fine, but you do need to make sure you plug in 2 negatives. One simple thing can cost you pretty big here. So 29.69. Now to find angle C, I just need to take those 2 angle measures that I have and subtract them from 180. So 180 minus 52.41 minus 29.69. And I am left with 97.9 degrees. Hopefully you got the same things as I did as I was working this out. If you need to watch it again, watch it again. If you have a question, write it down and ask me tomorrow in class, please, as we're spending another day on this. All right, let's move on to example 2. Example 2 is a little bit different. Pause it and draw the triangle. Example 2 is different because now we have 2 sides and an angle. So I'm going to go ahead and list what I know. Angle A is 20. I don't know angle B. I don't know angle C. Side A, I don't know. Side B is 5. And side C, excuse me, side C is 2. If you remember the formulas, let's actually scroll back up here. In order to find an angle measure, you need all 3 sides. You can't find an angle without having all 3 sides. So I actually have to find this side first. I need to find side A. So the first thing I need to do, find side A. Since I want to find side A, I'm going to use A squared. And now I just need to plug in. I don't know A squared, but I do know B and I do know C. So A squared will equal 5 squared plus 2 squared minus 2 times 5 times 2 cosine of 20 degrees. Now this is actually a lot easier than finding an angle measure. There's nothing to move. So let's see. This is 25 plus 4. So that gives me 29. 2 times 5 is 10. Times 2 is 20. Now here's where you really need to be careful with how you're going to work through this in your calculator, please. The 29 minus 20. A lot of students have a tendency to do this first, and they get 9 cosine of 20. And that is so wrong. Oh my goodness, that is so frustrating. The 20 is with the cosine. So you actually have to do this first. This is 29 minus, so in my calculator, I'm going to go ahead and do 20 times the cosine of 20. And I get 18.97, or sorry, 79, and a whole bunch of other decimals. So I'm going to do 29 minus that answer. And I get 10.206, and I'm going to keep that decimal in my calculator because it's equal to a squared. All of this was equal to a squared. I just didn't keep writing it. Constantly equal to a squared all the way through. Now to get a squared by itself, I just need to a by itself, I just need to square root. But I want to get back to the 10.206. You can also plug everything in back here as long as you're careful with how you plug in. So 29 minus 20 cosine of 20, and I get 10.206. Some of your calculators, you might need to put a parentheses around that so your calculator knows that the 20 cosine 20 go together and they need to be done separately from the 29. So as long as you get the 10.206, now that decimal's in my calculator, but to get rid of that square, I need to square root. So I'm going to square root with the answer button. And A ends up equaling 3.19. So that's the length of A. So I have 3.19. So now I can use the law of cosines to find one of my angles. So I'm going to find angle B. To find angle B, it's B squared equals. So I'm going to write this formula down. Now, unfortunately, you need to be very, very careful here. We're looking for angle B, but one of your side lengths is a decimal. Just use the decimal that's here, 3.19. I'm not worried about an exact decimal anymore. You have that side length. It is what it is. So we're going to have 5 squared, 3.19 squared, 2 squared, and we're looking for B. So I'm going to go through, get rid of my squares, 25. Now in my calculator, I'm going to do all of this at once right there. 3.19 squared plus 2 squared. And I get 14.1761 minus 2 times 3.19 times 2. 12.76 cosine of B. So now this is a lot like the first example where I'm going to subtract 14.1761 from this side. I'm not going to write it again. 25 minus 14.1761. And I have 10.8239. Notice I'm writing the entire decimal. Negative 1276. Now I'm going to divide I'm going to leave that fraction. This cancels. Now, I'm looking for the angle measure, which means I'm going to use inverse. So I'm going to show a little bit less work on this one. So my B is going to equal cosine inverse 10.8239 divided by negative 12.76. Those of you who do not use the entire decimal for 10.8239, you will get a different answer from those who do use the whole decimal. So please be careful. Don't be lazy. It's not going to kill you. So I'm going to use inverse cosine parentheses 10.8239. Be careful when you're typing in. Don't mix numbers around. Divided by negative 12.76. And I end with 148.02 degrees. That's my angle B. Now, if you're wondering or thinking that that's wrong, if I go back to angle B is a pretty wide angle. So it is probably correct. 148.02. And then to find angle C, 180 minus 148.02 minus 20. And I get 11.98 degrees. So there's both scenarios with the law of cosines. If you need to see this again, watch it again. We're going to go over this in class tomorrow. And then you'll be able to practice working on the worksheet that's also on our website for you to use. Again, watch it again. We're going to practice some more. It's just a long process. Watch your mistakes. And I'll see you tomorrow.